So first things first, again, I want to make mention of our sponsors. Without our sponsors, this would be a much more difficult venture to do. So I want to thank Sherwin-Williams, Pella, PHBI, Elton, Novatech, Guardian Glass, JSA Machinery, Screenco, Tremco, FCI, Federated Insurance, Caldwell Interlock, ESS, Open Janella, Quanex, Amesbury Truth, Plastpro, Ultrafab, Pref ERP, ODL, Trimlight, Leighton Consulting, Lux Windows, 50 years, DeKunick, Marvin, PH Tech, Furco, Fenestration Review, and Newcoat. And a second mention to PHBI. PHBI is our education sponsor for this event, so we thank them very much. Okay, so we're going to get going on our next session. So our next session is with Reza Kamrani from Federated Insurance, who, by the way, is a sponsor. And we're the guys that loaded us up with all that chocolate in our bags. So thanks to them for that. Reza was born in Iran and raised in Paris, France. Reza has worked in advertising industry in Egypt, assisted in meal prep for 2,000 athletes at the Vancouver Aquarium. Was it fish? And managed hotel restaurants in Iran. He's been employed with Federated for the past 10 years. Enjoys taking care of association partnerships and is currently responsible for BC, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. Reza is a proud father of a 7-year-old, takes every opportunity for family time. Today's session will focus on liability definition and exposure for contractors, faulty work, errors and emissions, etc., as well as insurance trends and focus on cybersecurity and climate change. Please welcome Reza Kamrani.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me in beautiful Kelowna. Thank you, Terry, and special shout out, Tamara. Got to appreciate the little mini tour outside. So my name is Reza, based out of Vancouver. As Terry mentioned, I take care of our association partners. And here we go. And this is insurance, right? Everybody knows. So, topped off the coffee. Everybody's good? Okay, here we go. Go down here. Okay. Thank you. So this is a little bit of what we do in the association department at Federated. So we take care of our association partners, similar to Fenestration Canada. So we participate in AGMs, trade shows, golf, and I think it's a sweet gig. We take care of the members. We have special, not pricing, or somebody asked me about pricing. No pricing, but service. And at the same time, we do try to do everything we can for our association partners on the management level. Currently, we have, I believe, 85 associations across Canada that work with us closely. These are some of the advantages. I don't know if it's big enough for you to see, but it's really focused on pricing, education, and going the extra mile. For example, a few weeks ago, the previous picture was Haven, so the Home Builders Association of Vancouver. And their membership person had a hip replacement surgery, and we had a couple of our people go in there and help her out with a very important event, the Buildex out of Vancouver. So we really try to do everything we can for our association partners. What makes Federated a little bit different than what's out there when it comes to our competition is we're direct. So we're a Canadian company, direct to our customers, so no middle person, and the whole company works for you. So from claims, underwriting, sales, myself, we're all thriving to make your experience with Federated as best as possible. So the agenda, I'll touch on contractors and specifically subcontractors exposures. We'll talk about insurance trend, both micro and macro. Cyber, it's one of those exposures that, it makes the news, but until it hits you, you don't know how do you say, disabilitating it can be. It could really put you out. So not only on the business that you do in your day-to-day operations, but also in the liability it could have for you. And finally, errors and omission. So as a contractor, this one is a little bit outside the norm of the typical exposures, and most of you contractors in this line of work do have this exposure. Now it's up to you to decide whether it's important to have it covered or not, but at least I want to make you aware of it in case you're not. What to look for in an insurance company, and this I put this slide in at this point because the trend and the norm has been, well, you guys are business owners, you take care of business. Once a year, the insurance person comes up and, like, you sit down 20 minutes, half an hour, you take a look, you sign a few papers, and off you go. And ultimately, especially with all the automation and computing and email, I would say that the insurance industry has been giving this to you as long as you're willing to take it. And if for me, this is something that I always found perplexing, is that it is, regardless of how much you pay, it is still a multi-million-dollar contract, and it could have huge implications for your business. So demand, it doesn't matter if you pay $1,000 or $10,000. Demand from your agent or your broker, your representative, to come down, or either over the phone or over Zoom or in person, and explain that contract to you. If there's things that you need to know, and I'm sure there's things you need to know, like everybody needs to know. Things change, and there's nothing that bugs me more than those policy renewals going in, email, boom, boom, signed, done. It's just not the way it's supposed to be. And it's if you ask for them to give you the time, they will give you the time. And the insurance industry, they're it's a fiduciary duty. We carry, I'm not in sales myself, but the salespeople, they carry errors and omission just in case if they make a mistake programming your policy. It's your livelihood, it's your family. And if something goes wrong and it's our fault, we have the insurance to cover that mistake. And it's important. And half an hour, is it too much to ask for? Half an hour a year? I think it's worthwhile. And for example, these are the things that you will find in the extensions of your contract. So you got the liability part, you got the property part. A lot of you are aware of that. But you also have the endorsements. And these are all little coverages, maybe 20, 30 of them, depending on your carrier. And they can make a difference. There's nothing like rework. That's a kind of errors and omission. Some insurance companies have them. Maybe you rent equipment once in a while. You could get those reimbursed. Some insurance companies have them in their endorsements, and these are the little things that you could pick up if you ask for your insurance person to give you half an hour and 1 hour a year to review your policy. So subcontractors. Perhaps many contractors believe that as long as they give away a job, like you get the big job and you give away pieces of it, then you're good. That person, your subcontractor, they go do their thing and they can't really touch you. But liability can still touch you. And let's take a look. So these are the 3 instances where you could still be liable for what your subcontractor does. And if you instruct them on how to do their job a little more than on a macro level, and if you get into details and you want them to do a certain way, then in essence, they're an extension of you. So if something happens, it's your insurance policy that will respond, not theirs. Maybe you hire somebody, and especially in this environment where it's tough to hire qualified people. And it turns out, they were not so qualified to do that job. You're responsible. And finally, the last one that probably doesn't apply to you, but an example of that would be like excavation. So the kind of work that is inherently dangerous in the sense that, something could go terribly wrong. And in those cases, there's nothing anybody can do. That liability is there. They just have to be really professional and do a really good job. So what can be done? Pretty much check that they have an insurance policy before you hire them. Check the limits. Usually nowadays is at least 5 million liability. Put yourself on their policy as an additional insured. It doesn't cost anything, but what that does is that insurance policy is you share their policy. So if they have a $5 million policy, you have a $5 million policy. But something goes wrong, you get sued, their policy responds first before yours. Another thing I want to talk about subcontractors is when you do your due diligence is for your own insurance. Let's say you're a general contractor and you do 10 million. But out of the 10 million, 5 million is through subcontractors. That 5 million gets billed at a much lower rate for your own insurance than if you were to do 10 million on your own. And there's a caveat to that, and that is if your subcontractor has insurance. So it makes sense. So you do 5 million through subcontractors, you can prove that they have insurance. That liability is much less for your insurance than if you were to do 10 million on your own. And the insurance company will take that into account when your premium comes into play. Yeah, I kind of just discussed that. Yeah, so the receipts, and making sure that they have coverage. So some of the trends out there. So collecting data, so that is your insurance company will collect data. The same thing is like, if you were anywhere you go, right? Like you buy anything, they're like, you want to give me your phone number or your email? It's just data is king these days. So So what is the insurance industry doing with the data? So I'm out of Vancouver, and for the first time, ICBC is giving you a discount. So if you're not driving too much, below 10,000 K a year, then you get a discount. On the plus side, for windshield incidents, the data will allow, and it's coming. So small fender benders and windshield you will get paid instantly. You don't need to go and do the claim, take a long time. You take a picture, you send it, and your insurance company will send you to the approved vendors to put a new windshield or take care of the fender bender. Weather-related claims. That's there's in the insurance industry we have something similar to a CPI. So for us it is whatever we need to take care of a claim, to fix a claim, and it could go from paint to materials, to specialized labor, and the data is as follows. So in March 2019, so that bundle cost $66,430, and in March 2023, that same bundle costs $86,650. So roughly a third in 4 years. Yeah, so it's going up. The federal government has just introduced last week, I think 2 weeks ago maybe, just under a $32 million package to kind of get the ball rolling for a national flood insurance program, because there's a few gaps. So these gaps will never be, like, the way it's going, it'll never be addressed. So flood, earthquake, and some other ones that are less catastrophic as these two, but there's almost, and like the pandemic. The pandemic was an awesome example. If you were to try to insure a small restaurant, like I think 1,500-foot restaurant, if that small restaurant wanted to have pandemic insurance, I think it would have cost like $75,000. Like I'm kind of trying to remember what it was, but these kind of coverages cannot be addressed unless the government steps in. And this is kind of the idea with the flood, and to get the ball rolling, because it's coming, it's getting worse. To give you an idea, 2022 was the third most costly year in Canadian history when it comes to insured damages. So that was at 3.1 billion. 6 of the past 10 years exceeded 2 billion. So the trend is clear. And what can you do? What can you do against like catastrophic loss? Like that the government has to step in. And I will touch on cyber in the next couple of slides. So Florida is like a interesting case of like worst case scenario, and I think it's not that unrealistic for us, depending where you live in Canada. So me, I'm in BC and I live in Estrada, and what has happened in the strata industry in British Columbia. So in the past, 5 years. So we went from my building having, maybe it was 50, 60,000, and it was a $25,000 deductible for flood, and then the rest, like water damage, 25,000, earthquake was a little bit more, and now this year. We're at 140,000, and like we scrambled because that 25, they wanted to jack it up to $100,000 deductible. And the problem with that is basically we're asking each condo unit to take on $100,000 self-insurance, and that, I guess, it's okay. It is. What can you do? It is what it is. But what's worse is that not everybody is going to take that. Not everybody is even sophisticated enough to program their own personal tenant insurance or condo owner's insurance in a way to cover that gap. And if something terrible happens, then there's like half the money in the building is missing, and then you have to go sue people, and it's like that's the kind of thing that's out there. Another example is if there's a hurricane or a flood or fire in any of the provinces, adjusters from different provinces are prevented from going in. So if there's one in BC, then by licensing requirements, as somebody from Alberta, an adjuster from Alberta can't come and help. And all these little things. I'll give you another example. So let's say again, Estrada or any other, let's say, big risk. Big commercial, let's say shopping mall, and 3-4 insurance companies all take a piece of that policy. Insurance company A bids $8, and insurance company D bids $14. The plaza will pay $14 total, so it's the highest dollar quote out of the 4 that wins, not an average. So there's a lot of little things like this that just is taking the industry in a bad place. and everybody contributes, whether it's the insurance company or some insurance buyers. Okay, so Florida. So 9% of all the national claims are from Florida. Does anybody want to guess what percentage of the lawsuits that 9% represent? Close to 80. And it's so basically, like, you know, you hear about it. You hear like always in the news, oh, everybody's moving to Florida. It's great. It's great. It's great till you get there, and then when you want to buy something or if you want to rent something, and then you get smashed because there's no running away from it. You either accept like a total loss exposure on your property, or you just accept of paying more and more and more and more and getting less and less and less. I mean, how can you live like this? I don't know. Maybe I'm the insurance guy. Like, you know, I think about these things, you know, all the time. But, you know, great, it's sunny, but, you know. Let's see. Yeah, maybe another thing on the stratas in BC, and I know this is also a fact in Alberta. So what's happening is they're scaling back what's covered. So maybe before you would get the finishes, but you're not going to get the finishes in the near future. So it's going to be kind of a bare bone policy where you get maybe your unit covered, but the strata, the building policy will not pay for finishes or common areas or yeah, common areas, but not finishes. So in essence, a lot of risk transfer from the insurance company onto consumers. So cyber, so it's definitely one of the big ones. I mean, it goes under the radar. It's always funny. Like, I don't know how many cyber security firms have been hacked themselves, and like, you know, we laugh and it's funny, but you know, it's my 2 cents is that if they want to get you, they're going to get you. And as a business, you should have something in place to at least have the appearance that you thought about it, that you got something, that there's a system in place to respond. And I think this is the best you can do. You can't, like, you know, the costs go up exponentially compared to the kind of coverage that you want to have. But there's a way to kind of program it smart, not costly, and it shows due diligence. And like, that would be my advice to most businesses. And like, this would be my suggestion. And I'm not a cyber guy at all. And just, you know, it's what this does. First party means your business, and this is what is provided to you. So if you get hacked, the policy will call your customers, notify them of what's happening. The policy will try to will start recuperating the data that may have been lost or damaged. The policy will, let's say if you're down for 2 weeks, it will compensate you for 2 weeks as if you're functioning. And finally, if there's like a ransom to the limit of the policy, will respond. And these things are reasonably priced. So I think, like, you know, maybe a $200,000 policy, I think $200. Like, I think I'm not off. I'm not too off there. Where it starts to get really expensive is third party. So you being down, the data of your customers were compromised or stolen. That kind of exposure is a lot more expensive to cover. And it's not easy to get anymore. If you want that kind of exposure, and I believe cyber has been losing money. Cyber coverage, insurance has been losing money for most of the time that it was an offering. So the underwriters are not just excited to write a policy. They want to see what you're doing. They want to see you being proactive. they want to see you being aware of the risk. Um, One of the best things you can do is to have your system backed off, either in the cloud or off your regular system, so like offline, and test it to make sure it works. This is probably the best thing you can do for yourself. It doesn't cost much, but it will protect you. Maybe you shouldn't allow everybody to have access to all of the files in your company. I know we do in insurance. Like if I want to put in a presentation and I need claims data, I got to ask. I don't have access to that. And I think that thing was in the news, a few weeks ago, where it was a 19-year-old US contractor who was giving away Ukraine war secrets in his game chat, and like the videotaped him being busted. Like he had no business knowing these things, and he was 19, he was showing off, he was sharing it. And this is the US Army, so there's lots of improvements to be made. And finally, again, a quick example on federated side. So as part of our constant training, we get they try to trick us. They try to take the IT department tries to make us click on things that. Well, I'll give you the example right away. So when we started, I think we clicked at a rate of like 15%. So we clicked on things we shouldn't have. It went down to 4%. And ultimately, the email that was the update on the renovation of our offices, that got a 24% click rate. So the bad people, the bad actors, they will construct the email in a way to pique your interests, and you just have to always be careful. Yeah. So this one, that little phone, like how many Netflix subscriptions are getting canceled, or I don't know, man. Every day, right? Every day they call. That last little icon there is Pegasus. So has anybody heard of Pegasus? So this thing, so this mobile attack is 7 years old, and it's basically a zero click. So they call you, and that's it. You don't have to do anything. They call you, and your phone is compromised, and they basically own it. So turn on the camera, record, go in there, get all your contacts. So this kind of thing is already out there, and this is 7 years old. And my belief is there's just so much productivity gains, and like the future is, IT and chat box and all these things, and the vulnerabilities are there, and we don't pay attention. But it's important to know that probably most of the systems that we use are vulnerable, and at least be aware of it, have some kind of protection on it, and that's probably the best we can do. A few tips. So everybody probably knows, don't do sensitive stuff on free Wi-Fi. The FBI actually 2 weeks ago, on those towers where you could charge your stuff, they came April, a few weeks ago, and they said, do not put your phone in there, because for the FBI to come and tell you don't put your phone in there, it's because it's full of malware. You put that wire into your phone, enough bad things have happened for them to come out and tell you not to do it. The auto rental stuff, I never thought about it. Like, I travel a lot, I rent a lot of cars, and I put my music, the Spotify, and then I give it back, and it never occurred to me that all my stuff is in there. When the auto tells you, do you grant access, you're not granting access to your Spotify. You're granting access to everything in there. So unless you're conscious enough to and know how to erase your data after being done with the car, or trust the auto rental company to do it for you, that's an exposure. Probably one of the better things you can do is and these days it's offered, whenever they tell you, do you want to do the multi-factor thing, say yes. And that's a good protection. Like the track record for that is very good. A few more exposures on cyber. So apart from your business liability, then there's also the government requirements. But if you have personal data from your customers, you are required to keep it safe. If something goes wrong, you can be on the hook. Although the Canadian government is not too strict, but in theory there is exposure there. Especially now after COVID, everybody's working from home, at least to a certain extent, and that system, whether it's your own system or whether you're hooked to your suppliers, it's the weakest link concept, and it's, you just have to be aware of it. And the data is, you need specialized coverage for that because data is specifically excluded through your CGL. I'm going to kind of touch quickly on professional liability. So that's E&O, errors and omission. Basically, doing something that you didn't do or omitting to do something that you were supposed to do. So your CGL, and these are the exclusions. So faulty work, faulty material, or you just made a mistake. Your CGL will not cover you for those mistakes. And specifically, these are the exposures. So using a material that was recalled with a defect, was designed inappropriately, making a mistake, reading a design, or just making a mistake. So just to give an example, so a contractor does a work. The work is worth $200,000. Building a brand new school worth $3 million. The contractor made a mistake. The whole thing goes up in flames. Who pays? The E&O will pay for the $200,000 if to redo the work. So if there was no E&O, the CGL would have covered the 2.8 million regardless. So that's all good as long as the limit was set properly. But the 200,000 usually always without E&O will not get paid. So I don't know how many contractors could take that hit, but it's worth knowing that that exposure is out there. And a specific example of that, it happened for us just recently. And so we have a partnership also with the energy advisors of Canada. And their president told me, Reza, I'm getting some of the energy advisors are telling me, why do we need E&O? Because they have E&O. And they said, well, we go in, we do the assessment for the home, we check out the net zero performance. We have an internal body that double checks our work before releasing it to the client. So where's our exposure? Like we're covered. And basically, an exposure for specifically this instance would be they do they release it. The performance of the home is not good. It's not net zero. The client sues, and who does he or she sue? He sues everybody. He sues the window manufacturer because it could be the window could be defective. He sues the installation because maybe you made a mistake. Maybe you damaged the window while doing the installation, and then it sues the E&O because it sues the energy advisor because maybe they misread or they made a mistake on the instrument in guaranteeing a net zero home. And for E&O and generally speaking for all of insurance, the defense cost is the unsung hero because anybody can sue you pretty much for anything. And having the proper coverage in place also means that you don't have to pay to defend yourself, whether whatever happens at the end of the day, because It's insurance, it's there, it pays, it doesn't matter. That's just the way the industry is. Contrary probably to what most people believe, insurance companies don't care about paying claims. They pay thousands of claims a day. The only thing maybe that they don't like to see in claims is repetitive. If the same kind of claim from the same company is always happening. So all that shows is, that they're not learning. And that's what insurance companies don't like to see. You could have a $5 million claim out of something crazy that happens, and insurance companies usually won't blink. But if you have $10,000 slip and falls out of your store, there's a problem. Yeah, so recap, pretty much covered this. And finally, take a look at your policy, review it, it's important, demand from your agent the time to explain this to you. If you have any questions, it's their fiduciary duty to do so. So the same way you guys you go to work, you give the best service possible to your customers, demand the same from an insurance person. So that's it for me. If you have any questions.
So overnight tonight, I'll get you. I got a email from a board member, from a FenCan board member, or at least it appears to be. It's got his name at the top. It says, gift for coworkers, so I was suspicious right away. And then it says, hello, Terry, where can you easily get gift cards from Amazon or Visa Master? Write back and let me know immediately. I plan to surprise a few of us, and I trust you can take care of the purchase better. Well, I'm still waiting for the card. I haven't seen it yet. And it's signed with his name. So, yeah, I mean, if I hadn't have looked at the email address that came with this, somebody might click on it. Wouldn't even think about it. I got, as you were coming this morning, I got the update renewal for my home insurance. It went up 20%. And I know I haven't added 20% of value to my house this year, so it's brutal how bad it is. You did mention the government pitching in on catastrophic disasters, etc. So I live on Vancouver Island, and I had my insurer quote me for earthquake insurance. Well, I could have bought a new house instead of paying for earthquake insurance. So where does that leave a homeowner that doesn't carry that kind of insurance in a catastrophic event? Is the government going to step in and help a homeowner? Like, what's your experience there?
It's I'm speaking from our specific event experience of Federated when there was the Calgary floods. Happened, I don't know, a long time ago. So there's a coverage, it's called sewer backup. So obviously if the water comes out of your pipes versus flooding, so that's over land kind of water precipitation. Flooding is usually not as available, and I think at the time it wasn't even offered that much in insurance policies, whereas sewer backup is pretty much in every policy. And the government made a lot of insurance companies treat those losses as sewer backup. And the point of the story is somebody has to find the money. It's like Vancouver Island, earthquake, tsunami behind it. It's again catastrophic exposure, and the government will try to find the money. Either there is the coverage, or if there's not the coverage, they'll make the insurance companies pay, or it looks like they're starting to get to the point where again, I'm going to give another example. Now, if you have a total loss on your home, you're contractually allowed to rebuild in the same area. If it's a flood place you're building, you're going to notice in your contracts in the next little while that that's not going to be in the wordings anymore. And little things like this, where they're kind of nudging for people to become aware and participate on all levels: insurance, government, people. And my guess is ultimately it's going to get pushed to the consumer. And like it's happening already. Like $100,000 deductibles for earthquake. It's either 2% or $100,000, whichever is larger, or it could be 250,000. So you're taking that initial $250,000 loss, and then the government and the insurance companies and probably these two entities the most will cover the rest.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Calgary, because I live in Calgary, and after the 2013 floods, my insurance rates skyrocketed. And I phoned them and I said, you know, I live in Huntington Hills. If the water reaches my house, we're all in trouble. And they said, doesn't matter. Everybody's a part of the same, you know, group of payers. And the other thing I noticed that the province did help out, and they offered to buy out some homes right by the Elbow River. They bought them out, they demolished them, and now they're fenced off, no trespassing, and there'll never be another house built on those spots. So at least they're not as stupid as in Florida, where they, you know, keep rebuilding the house for you. Anyways, that wasn't my question. So my question was, so what kind of claims do you see made against fenestration products? What are the major risks that you should try to avoid?
Just on a very general level, is leakage. That's like if the
Window leakage or
Yes,
installation leakage? Two different things.
Yeah, well, I'm not like I'm just the insurance guy, Terry. You know, I just like the water gets in. That is the exposure that I know in Federated we don't like to see.
Have you ever had an insurance claim where you replaced all the windows in a building because of alleged water leakage problems?
Where did I hear this? I heard yes, and it was a brand new building, and it was, I think I want to say high tech and like by the water and like high end, and they miscalculated like the HVAC or the water from the sea coming in and introducing moistures, and the whole thing had to be torn out.
Rates have been on a steady incline, especially with all the, I'll say, catastrophes that have been going on. And what we're also finding is that they're being product specific. We're experiencing a hit on plastics. Any manufacturing of plastics and whatnot is really being frowned upon and it hardened the insurance industry. Where ultimately are these these premiums going to be going? Because I don't see the claims slowing down.
Yeah. So it kind of touched on a little bit what the other gentleman said. So we're the insurance companies. We have what they call treaties with reinsurance companies. And when times get tough, those reinsurance companies dictate to us, hey, we have $2 billion on this, I want $1.5 billion. And it just throws all the logic out. And a lot of these exposures, and those are not fun conversations to have. So like my job as an association representative, I live in Vancouver. One of like that picture, that Haven Home Builder Association of Vancouver. We have great penetration. I think last time I looked, we had a negative loss ratio. So like it's like a dream for an insurance company, and we're losing customers because the reinsurance guys are telling us, I don't want this exposure. I don't want more than this dollar amount, and we have to go and tell our people, our clients that have been with us for 10 years, 15 years, and they haven't had a loss, and they're professionals, and you know they're personal. Some of them are friends of mine, and we have to tell them you're canceled. And it's the kind of conversation that's horrible to have.
So is this circle of reinsurance companies shrinking? Because it doesn't seem like we have a lot of alternatives.
It's definitely shrinking. What's maybe in the past, especially pre-COVID. So pre-COVID, it was what they said soft market. So as a consumer, you could go to different insurance companies, and it was a buyer's market for you. After COVID and up until now, it has been a hard market. So what you're describing is the norm, and it doesn't matter. It's your coverage takers. Whatever is offered to you, most of the time you got to take it. Especially when it comes. Before I mention that, things are leveling off. So it looks like it's leveling off, except for property. So there has been the rate of loss on property and real estate, specifically due to fire losses. So total fire losses have not been abating, and the property rates are going to probably still go up and up and up and up. But on liability, it's going to probably level off, and it's where these money is going is it's I don't know, it's not going for us. They tell us, although I have to say, insurance companies done really well in the past 5 years, and that is specifically due to auto premiums. So half of all the premiums in Canada are auto premiums, and 2 years of COVID. So those autos were not moving, but for the most part, the premiums were being paid. And even now, with the 2 days and the 3 days, and not everybody being back at the office, again, those autos are not fully working, but still the premiums are being mostly taken. So insurance companies in general in the past 5 years have done well, but when it comes to capacity, because ultimately what you're mentioning is a capacity problem, is for plastics, how many insurance companies are willing to get into that market? Not many. And the minute that there's not many of them, what you described happens.
You mentioned errors and emission insurance for energy advisors. We don't quite know yet what would be defined as an error on their end. So if they designed something and it turned out, who would be the determining person that would define the error? Like a fire is like a motor causing a fire in the building burning down, that's obvious. But a building performing to a homeowner's ideal idea of comfort is subjective. So how would that system play out potentially if it came down to it?
So it's, I'll go back to the example I gave. So for example, a net zero home, it has to it's pretty technical. I don't know those R7s and how many millimeters. It's it's way over my head. But so there's standards of performance that are outlined, and in the insurance industry, there's investigations, and when see, do I have it? Maybe I have it. 1 second. I have it in one of those papers, but basically, when a loss happens or a claim is made, like insurance companies hire professionals in that field. They go in and they look at the window. Is the window good? Was the window good before it got installed? Was the energy advisor, now they do the test in the home. Is the home performing to the net zero standards? Yes or no? Yes? Okay. And so forth. And they go on. And I was trying to find that example. And basically at some point they make a recommendation, and the fault doesn't have to be 100 or 0. Like they could say they could be contributing factors, and maybe 30% of the fault will go on the energy advisor, and maybe 30% will go on their internal body that approved it, and 40% will go on the insurance company. I don't know, but and then ultimately the judge decides if it goes to court. But it's an imperfect science, and one of these claims was somebody said something happened. They don't know when it happened. They don't know. I don't know. I want to almost say where it happened, and you kind of do the best that you can, trying to find fault, I guess, or assign probabilities of what went wrong. I'll share one interesting claim that we had recently. So we do a lot of fuel dealers. The fuel storage was in a place, it got damaged, and who got sued? So the fuel delivery person got sued. The snow clearing company off the roof got sued, and the designer of the fuel tank got sued because the fuel tank was put in a place that they should have known better, that when there was clearing the snow off a roof of the building and that snow fell, it fell on the tank and it damaged it. And like that's probably an example of what's out there. It's like it's a moving target, and you just do the best that you can.
Hi. I ran across this concept a few years back. These brokers, I think, were at Windor, and we're talking about credit insurance, where you can basically insure your business's receivables. You can carry a policy, and it will cover in case the people who owe you money go out of business. Essentially, is how I understood it. Just interested in your take on that industry and that kind of insurance, and what you think.
Yeah, I've heard of this, and even you could do it with receipts. So if you got receipt, like if somebody's not paying you, it's not like collections, right? It's different, and you give away a portion of it and you sell it, and you could do that with insurance too. I don't have anything specific, like any specific knowledge on that, but. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know.
So during this little exchange, I got a text, and it was from another Fenestration Canada person with an email, FenCan email. It says, "Was that email about the gift cards from X?" So they got it, and they're not even sure. So it's really easy to get scammed. Be careful. Yeah, I know, but people just click, right? They just click. It's from him. It's a gift card. Regarding Ray's comments about the ransomware hacks, my former life, we were hacked. The company was down for about 2.5 weeks. Couldn't build Windows. Significant dollar loss. And from what you said, it sounds like insurance protection is pretty reasonable for that activity. Yeah. So if you don't have it, even if you have a great IT team that thinks they've got you protected, buy it, because it'll be well worth it.
Before you get a quote, have somebody from an outside source, what they're going to do, before they give you a quote, is they're going to...
They'll try and hack you.
Yeah. See how easy you are to hack.
Yeah.
Easy you are to hack, the higher you pay the premium.
Right, yeah.
Up your security.
So try to get hacked, build up your protection, and then go and get your insurance. There you go. Yeah. Just one other comment. Anybody that lives in BC, but most of you may be aware of the floods in the Fraser Valley here a couple of years ago. Billions of loss. What was interesting about a lot of that flooded area is it was in the Fraser Valley basin. Most of the homes and farms that were flooded are in a floodplain. About 120 years ago, it was a lake, and they built dikes all around it. Well, eventually, dikes, if they're not maintained, and you get, what do they call them? Atmospheric rivers. So most of those homes would not have had flood protection because you can't buy it because you're on a floodplain. So I'm assuming the government stepped in and covered a lot of that. But catastrophic losses, and we see it everywhere. I mean, the town of Lytton burned down a couple of years ago, you know, from wildfires, and it's always something. So, all right, thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your time.